Welcome back, Truth Seeker. Shout out to King Richard TV. He found a great piece of predictive programming in a movie I've talked about several times. I've done numerous decodes on the movie Enemy of the State. If you've never seen this film, it's one of those must-watch movies full of predictive programming. And all the times I watched it, I didn't catch this piece. So shout out to King Richard TV. In the film where Will Smith stars, his son's name is Eric, and his son's friend name is Dylan. Eric and Dylan. Like Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. And just a little dialogue from the movie. This is Will Smith talking. He says, "Eric, Dylan, get in the car, please." They say, "No, we're okay." Then he says, "No, get in the car right now. But school's right down the block. You heard me? Now get." So you can tell the kid's going back and forth with dad. So Eric, Dylan, school. Not that long after this movie came out, you had Eric and Dylan at a school in Columbine, supposedly. And a mass shooting unfolded. And since then, there's been a whole lot more mass shootings. And I was in my junior year of high school when Columbine happened. And we were out in Washington State. We had to have a pep assembly after the shooting, or at least a meeting in the gym. I guess it wasn't necessarily a pep assembly, but it was similar. But we had to meet in the gym and go over the new protocol to keep us safe at school. And the new policy was that you had to have a name tag on at all times, or you would get detention, which I knew as a child was a really dumb policy, because what was a name tag ever going to do to keep anyone safe? Oh, look, the mass shooter's there, but my name tag's on. It's kind of like how government is. Something happens, and then they bring about more senseless policies that just make everything even worse. Anyway, look at this, you guys. Enemy of the State came out November 20th, 1998. I've actually talked about how it came out on Joe Biden's 56th birthday numerous times. Speaking of Enemy of the State. But then Columbine happened April 20th, 1999. So 5 months to the day later, or a span of 152 days. And look at the gematria of Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. 152, right? 152. I'm sure you remember that Joe Biden equals 152 since the film came out on his birthday. You might recall the first President's Day after after Biden became president, fell on the 15th of February. 15/2. There was a lot of 152 rituals in the time of Biden, including Kamala's full name. Kamala Devi Harris equals 152 as well. But yeah, think about how unlikely this is to be a coincidence, right? Eric and Dylan, Enemy of the State. What the movie's about is corruption within government, the dark side of the NSA, the building police surveillance state. Will Smith comes across something he's not supposed to come across, evidence of a political assassination. Joe Biden, his last year in office, he did this. Today marks 25 years since 13, right? 13 innocent lives were taken at Columbine High School. I haven't looked in a while. The footage was online forever to watch from Columbine, and it's almost disturbing that they would let the footage be out there for as long as they did, because if anybody take the time to watch the footage, they'd see that something was wrong. If you've ever watched the footage of Columbine High School, there are people in white polo shirts and khaki pants with clipboards walking around caught on camera while the shooting is going on. Who are these men walking around taking notes during the shooting? And of course, they know most people aren't going to look into anything, so they don't worry about people seeing the footage. But if you look it up, you will find it, and it looks very much like a drill was going on. As for the 25 years, Enemy of the State came out in 1998. That was 25 years after Joe Biden became a senator in 1973. I'm sure you remember how his wife and daughter died right after he became senator-elect in 72. It was a very similar ritual to the death of his son, Beau Biden, before he became president. But here's another thing that's interesting about this. The actors, the children actors who are picked to play Eric and Dylan, like Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. Eric is Will Smith's son, and they picked the actor Joshua Washington, speaking of the feds. And the Dylan character is played by Bobby Borriello, which is interesting because that's a famous gangster's name in history as well. And if you've seen Enemy of the State, the mafia is part of the plot. But look at the names of the actors. 325, right? Bobby Borriello and Joshua Washington, 325. Joe Biden's full name, Joseph Robinette Biden, 325. Just like Scottish Rite of Freemasonry is 325. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. Pretty infamous meeting. But the real Bobby Borriello, he died in history at age 47. And I thought that was interesting because Enemy of the State is about the NSA, which was created in 1947, not to mention the letters NSA equal 47. And remember, Joe Biden was once the 47th vice president, and he took office with the 47-year-old Obama, and he was in the federal government from 73 and 2020 when he became president-elect. That was 47 years later. Of course, in Gematria, president equals 47, like White House, like government, like authority, like Trump. He was between the two Trump terms. But yeah, it's amazing how they do all this stuff so perfectly coded. Again, you're trying to wake your friends and family up. They might not need the additional details, but just what are the odds, in this movie about government corruption? You got these kids, Eric and Dylan, and it's just perfectly coordinated. And again, this is why it drives me nuts that more people don't appreciate this knowledge. If you're trying to say, that's weird, Eric and Dylan right before Columbine, and then you run the gematria and you're like, wow, look at how that lines up. But then morons will be like, well, you're using 4 different ciphers, which is just a really dumb retort because, okay, yeah, 4 ciphers. What are the odds that it would line up like this with the 4 ciphers, huh, genius? Like what, 1 in a million? So, and it would be something like that if you never took in a statistics class, just like pretty much all these things that happen day in and day out are 1 in a million. Yeah, but 4 ciphers. Okay, keep telling yourself whatever you need to not see how rigged the system is against us. All right, but yeah, again, also shout out to King Richard. Great find. And I'd tell you to go watch my older work on Enemy of the State, but of course it's been deleted with the 20-some channels that have been deleted. If you've never seen that movie, definitely check it out. Till next time, True Seeker.